Now we're recording. This is the slideshow. It is a goal-getting workshop, which is better than a goal-setting workshop because when you set your goals, you've only done part of the work. So hopefully with this presentation, we're looking more at, yes, setting your goals, but then actually the execution side, which is actually the important side. What I'm going to do is present to you two different types of goal setting. And why both are important and in which instances you'd use one over the other. So without further ado, here we are, how to set goals that you can actually stick to. All right. So these are usually the common goals that people come into the gym with. And you might also recognize some of those that you've set yourself in the past. So as a PT, this is often what we're given to work with from the get-go. So losing weight, wanting more tone, wanting to get strong, or wanting, something that you've had in the past. Now, the problem is with those that they're not very specific, they're quite vague, and they don't really give a lot of information, especially with what those indicators mean to that person specifically, because it is different for everyone. So the biggest problem why goals don't work is that they're either ambiguous, they lack clarity, strategy, there's no plan involved. So you state what you want, but you actually don't figure out how you're going to get there. It doesn't address what really underlies problems in the first place. So the reason why you have a goal is because you have a problem. But the reason why you have a problem is because you've got some really shitty habits. So if they're not addressed, then the goal is really never going to be achieved. And probably the biggest one, and I wrote about this on Facebook during the week, was biting off a lot more than you can chew, also known as throwing the frog in the fucking fire. So hopefully you've heard of that saying, how do you boil a frog? Well, you put it in the pot first and then you set it on so that it boils slowly. But what we tend to do is we get so enthusiastic, for example, at the start of the year about what we want to achieve. We write out the list of everything that we need to do to achieve it, and we go ham from day dot. Instead of potentially just easing ourselves into the goals and slowly getting better. So instead of just boiling the frog, you skip the pot and you threw it in the fire. And that generally 9.9 times out of 10 doesn't work. If you can probably think about a goal that you've had in the past and one that maybe didn't last very long, it's a good chance that it's probably because of one of those things. Okay. So going back to those statements that we had before, wanting to lose weight, wanting more tone, wanting to feel strong, there's a lot of things missing there. The two main ones is why. So why do you want to lose weight? And the how. So how specifically do you think you're going to be able to lose that weight? And there's a lot more to that on top of there as well. Let's look forwards first, looking to the why. So why do you want to lose weight? Why is it so important to you? Can you actually see yourself as that person? It brings values into perspective. So if it's not really something that you believe in, it's not really something that you're going to be able to achieve. We're going to talk more about values in a bit, but they are important. The most important thing that you need to ask yourself is any goal that you have has to make your life better. So if it's not something that's going to improve you as a person or improve your situation, then it's probably not the right goal for you. If you look forwards into how you're actually going to achieve the goal that you're looking for, you need to ask yourself, what are you prepared to do? What are you not prepared to do? Because that's really important. Say, for example, if somebody wants to lose weight and it's focused a lot around their belly, and they're willing to, clean up their nutrition a little bit, but they're not willing to get rid of their bottle a night drinking habit, well, then it tends to be something that is not likely that they're going to achieve it, but they're not willing to do enough to get there. So as much as they want it, there's something wrong with that. Okay. And also that last one is, what does X look like to you? Because everyone's perception is different and what they're looking for is different, one person's tone may look a lot different to somebody else's. So being able to paint a picture or have an understanding of what a certain goal looks like on you as a person or as you as a person is also really important to establish as well. All right. So this is where we talk about values. Now, I'm not going to go deep into this because it's not my expertise, but the cool thing about goals is they're values and morals driven. So goals, just like values and morals, they drive every decision that you make. So your goals and your values must be in alignment. So the 3 questions that I like to ask myself if I'm having a bit of a mismatch in goals, or even if you just don't know what your values are, is to remind yourself what you believe in, what you believe to be true, what bothers you about other people, which is one way of also saying what you admire about people. You know what really pisses me off is people who litter and throw cigarette butts out of the car window. It absolutely drives me nuts. And I am a person who doesn't really speak up a lot, especially to strangers, because yes, they might stab me. But honestly, like last year, I was walking home from work one day and I saw a guy stop at a set of traffic lights, and he wound down his window and he threw some trash out the window. And I was like, you fucking kidding me? So I actually made a big deal about it. I waved at him and I was like, hello, excuse me, you dropped something there, because it pissed me off. It pissed me off so much. So I know that people who throw rubbish, people who litter and cigarette butts absolutely drive me nuts. So I really care about the environment. I really care about cleaning up rubbish. And I go to Brighton Sands every week and I pick up rubbish because that's what I value. So long story short, sometimes we don't know how to find our values. So an alternative way of finding our values is figuring out what pisses you off about other people. And so that value is probably the opposite. That's my story. Another thing is figuring out what you spend your time doing, what you spend your time talking about, what you spend your time reading about, researching, that sort of thing. That might also give you an indication of what you're really interested in. Again, for me, a lot of the things I read and research is going to be personal development based, PT based, training based, because I just love that stuff. If you want to dive deeper into your values, if this is something that you're curious about, John DeMartini is really good. If you just literally Google DeMartini values, you'll probably come up with some sort of quiz or blog that'll give you a good place to start, basically. That's what I would do if you want to just establish your values first before you set goals. Okay. But wait, if I've just ruined it for you and suddenly you don't know what you want, there's some other things that you may want to ask yourself. If you didn't have clear goals in the beginning, or if you really want goals but you don't know where to start, if you want to have something to follow, if you want some sort of direction. Now, this doesn't need to be specifically health and fitness related. This could be career goals, life goals, relationship goals, everything. It can be applied to everything. So some of the questions that you may want to ask yourself if you don't really know where to go from here is what your biggest struggle is when it comes to career, health, fitness, motivation, you name it, put it in the thing. And also, how did you get to this point? So if there was an event or something that changed for you that put you on a different path, what keeps you awake at night? What are you afraid of, or what's your deepest fear? What are your top 3 daily frustrations? What 3 trends keep occurring or coming up in your life? So things that just keep coming back to you and you don't know why they keep coming back to you. And what you secretly desire most. So there's more questions than that, but if you don't quite know what you want, that's a good start, because goals are a solution for a problem that you have. So often if you don't know what your goal is, just think about, what's your problem? And then you build a goal to get you out of that problem. So goals are solutions. Good. All right. So 2 goals that we're going to look at today: specific and open. It's good to have a mix of both. It's not good to have all in the one category. If you have too many specific goals, you're going to get very overwhelmed and probably crash and burn. If you have too many open goals with not enough specific goals, chances are you're probably not going to get very far. You're going to feel good about yourself, but depending on what your goals are, you tend to lose sight a lot easier, and something like a pandemic shows up and it kind of ruins everything. All right, so let's look at specific goals. So these are goals that you want to achieve within a definite time frame and achieve a definite result. With these, you want the accountability and you want to track it. So you want to be held accountable on a daily, weekly basis. And there's a lot of numbers or a lot of things to check off. So this structure is a little bit different to what I presented last year. I feel, hopefully it's smooth for you. I feel like this one is still simplified. And so hopefully it just means that it's less overwhelming, even though this is a specific goal that has a lot to it. So if you look at the green column, first of all, you start off with, well, what do I want? What is it, the thing that I want? So just make sure that it is SMART tested, that's your specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound, and make it absolutely clear. Make sure that it is so specific that there's no question about what you want. I'm going to give you an example when we go over this page. Number 2 is saying why it's important. So why do you want that goal? This is where people tend to get a little bit funny, because it means that they do have to actually go deep and be really honest about why they want it, and it scares them. So you need to be able to answer it with detail, and it is okay to be a bit weird about it. And again, in this next slide, you'll know why. Number 3 is the how. So how you're going to go get it. So these are all the planning, the tactics, the strategies, knowing exactly what you're going to do and when you're going to do it in order to achieve it. Now, one thing that I probably didn't emphasize enough is about how to set the bar low and allow for improvement over time. So for example, if you've been, if you want to get back into exercise in the gym, if over the last couple of months, weeks, you've been able to manage once, twice maybe, but not regularly, the worst thing you could probably do is say that from today, I'm going to train 5 times a week and I'm going to be consistent, and that's what it's going to be. It's going to be amazing, because as soon as you start slipping and it becomes 4, and every so often it's 3, suddenly you lose that motivation because you said you're going to do 5. You set the bar way too high. You threw the frog in the fire, where really maybe we could have looked at January being accountable for twice a week. And if you hit 3, fantastic, but we only held you accountable for 2. Then February, maybe we upped it to 3 and you spent all of February coming 3 times a week. So then we just kind of slide it in. We go slower. And what that does, it doesn't feel as good because you feel like you should be doing more. But what that's going to do is it's actually going to set you up a lot better for the longer term. If you go up to the top, I've included, this is new, but I've included some overarching desire aligned with your values. So this kind of headlines a whole bunch of goals, so a group of goals that you want to achieve. So it really just talks to this is why I live, this is why I do what I do. And so these are the goals that I have aligned with my values. If I go to this next slide, it will make a whole lot more difference. Here we are. Here's one of my exercise goals. So I have said, where did I put myself here? Hi. That I want to swim 400 meters nonstop freestyle by the 31st of December 2021. So I have like literally a whole year to achieve this. The reason why I've set this up, let me go through this. So my why is pretty long, but the longer it is, the more meaningful it is, the more times when I want to stop, I have a reason to keep going. So let me read this out. I'm a terrible swimmer to the point that when I was a kid, I refused swimming lessons. I would just sit out. I wouldn't even pack my swimmers. I would just tell my mom I'm not swimming. And I'd sit with her. This attitude to something that I wasn't good at has really, like, now pisses me off, that just because I wasn't good at something, I decided not to do it. So it would be comforting, and to confidently swim 400 meters seems like a good benchmark. I also love the idea of going swimming even when it's cold, because it's pretty badass when you go swimming outdoors, like in winter. For me, it shows mental toughness, helps improve mental and physiological health, and it's a good example to others wanting to do the same. So there's a lot of ammo there. So if ever Elise wakes up and it's a bit cold, but today I'd planned to do the swim, it's like the end of the week, so I don't have many days left, all I have to do is ask myself, hey Elise, why have you decided to do this? And I was like, oh, because I'm trying to set a good example to others, and I don't want to bitch out because I bitched out when I was a kid. There you go. So this is my story about how shit I am at swimming. And here's some ways that I think I'm going to do it. So I actually got a swimming lesson voucher for my birthday last year in May. But we were in lockdown at the time, and it wasn't as important. But I've still got it, and I want to get it started by the end of this month. So I've got a couple of weeks just to make that phone call and get booked in. I want to make time for swimming, either in botany, because I work here a lot now and there's a pool down the road, or in the ocean, because there is a lot of it. And I actually like swimming in the ocean, because there's usually not that many people around during the day. And again, it's pretty badass. Once a week in the calendar. Once a week, I think, is achievable. I'll take on feedback from the swim coach to guide how I will train myself, because I literally have no idea how to train for swimming. And to keep me accountable, I'm going to post some progress on Instagram to show that I'm doing it. So if I tell the world, then the world has to keep me accountable. Now, the cool thing, the value at the top for me is to be a lifelong learner, to lead by example, and to show that it's never too late to suck at something new. So even if I'm really bad at swimming, this time I've never swum much before. I mean, I can doggy paddle and I can save my life, but that's about it. But I don't know personally how long it's going to take to learn how to swim 400 meters. I assume once you get going, it's pretty straightforward and you just improve over time. But really, I've got no comparison. I've never done it before, so I don't know how long it's going to take. So that's the reason, and it's highlighted there, why I've given myself the 31st of December, 2021. Because I think within 12 months, unless I lose my legs, I think I got it. All right. Now that's a lot. That's the simplified version. All you have to do is have what you want, why you want it, how you're going to do it, and just the value at the top as to this is why I do what I do. But maybe I don't want to make it strict. Maybe I've never tried it before. I don't know how it might look. Maybe I don't know exactly what the end should be. Maybe I want it, but I'm not fussed on getting it by a specific date. Maybe I have, I recall, like a softer goal. Not soft as in like not hardcore, but just something that's just, that you can't put a number to, or that you don't necessarily want to be, working at every day of every week of every month. We've got open goals, and we need to thank Rita for sending me this article about open goals, which is something that I knew, but I didn't know how to put into words, but they're real. So an open goal, if we take this same swimming example, if I wasn't so hung up on it and I just thought it was something cool to do, instead of, the 400 meters by the 31st of December, I'm just going to learn to swim. I'm going to see how far I can get by the end of the year. I should have probably put that in there. Doesn't matter if it's 400 meters. It might be 800 meters by the end of the year. We don't know because I've never tried it before. So the reason why this is important, it's kind of basically the same thing. Always the deeper you go, the better. So always asking yourself, why? This is actually a great example. I added this in today, and I didn't want to write the same thing twice, but it's actually a really great example who could benefit from having a little bit more of a deeper discussion with themselves about why they want this goal. So if somebody told me, hey, Elise, I'm a terrible swimmer. I can float, but it would be ideal if I could swim, a good stroke over a distance, I'd be like, why is it important to you? Why do you want this? How is it going to make your life better? Those sort of things. So just keep asking why, until you get to something super deep and super meaningful to you. I get this a lot, and honestly, it is a fight to get to the bottom of it. But once you get there, you'll be like, oh, I really do want it. Or, no, I don't really want it. I don't know why I said that I wanted that thing. I don't want it anymore. So it's good to do. It's just a bit uncomfortable. The tactics. So again, the tactics aren't as stringent as the other example. Yeah, all right, I'm going to write it into my weekly, maybe my monthly routine. Yeah, I'll still do the swimming lessons, and I'll just test how far I can go every time. So there's no specific goal by a specific deadline. There's no mini milestones. It's just let's keep doing it and see if I'm still doing it by the end of the year. The overarching value is obviously still the same. That wouldn't change, but it's still there. All right, where are we going next? Rinse and repeat. Okay, so this is a good way to organize your goals. If you have, quite a few of them, and for me, I have a lot of goals. I've managed to control them a little bit more this year compared to previous years, but they still do need a little bit of organization. So you can either organize them by those values that you have, and I would just have like a value statement for each part of my life. So, like something to do with my health or exercise or nutrition, or package them all in one if that's kind of what floats your boat. Something about relationships, something about career or business goals. So there might be your overarching desires. There's no right or wrong. It's just whatever works for you. So just keep doing it as many times until you've captured all your values and wants for 2021. Here's the point. Have a blend of open and specific goals. So I might have a couple of specific exercise goals because, hey, I exercise a lot and I have a lot of things that I want to achieve. But when it comes to other things that I care about, but don't care enough about to have all these tasks that I need to do, there might be some open ones involved there too. If I can think off the top of my head, yeah, like I want to buy less coffee because I can make a decent coffee if I have the tools. So I think I was just like, oh, I want to buy coffee like once a week instead of, potentially every other day, that sort of thing. I'm not going to track it, but I'm just going to know, hey, I didn't buy coffee this week. Good job, Elise. Just a reminder that those you want more, oh God, I clicked a thing. Those you want most and that you want a specific result out of, make sure you use the specific goals for that. Otherwise, it's not going to happen as much. I find people who basically they're afraid of failing will not use specific goals, and they'll keep it as this airy-fairy, unspecific, undefined thing because they're afraid of what might happen, the disappointment that they're going to get if they don't, if they fall short. But hopefully in these next slides, we start to figure out all those things that could go wrong and all those things that you haven't done yet to create a really solid, meaningful goal. And that's something that you can actually achieve this time instead of just being disappointed again and starting from the beginning and being here for the same workshop next year with the same damn goal. Okay, some strategies to succeed and things to remember. Now, this is a whole series of really fun infographics. Here we go. The brain does not process negatives. So when you're writing your goals and statements, make sure that it is written in the positive. So if you say that you want to quit smoking, quit sugar, if you want to stop, this is terrible examples, stop being a fatty and stop being so lazy, and I want to avoid going to nightclubs, I don't know. All that says is what you don't want. But because the brain doesn't process negatives, all it hears is sugar, being fat, being lazy, being a slob. It doesn't actually figure out what you do want, which is you want to have more energy and you want to get up off your butt and you want to be moving and you want to be motivated. So make sure when you're writing your goals or even talking to yourself and talking about yourself to other people, make sure that you're picking up on the language that you're using on yourself and put it in the positive. And often, I mean, I'm pretty well trained now, so I will avoid the negatives, but whenever I hear a client say something in the negative, usually I'll pick up on it. I'll get them to turn it into a positive. And it just takes a little bit of training. You know that we've all come from various upbringings, and it's what you've been surrounded with that really comes out now. So if you've grown up with a lot of negative language, if that's the way that your mom spoke about herself or your dad spoke about himself or your grandma, brothers, sisters, that sort of thing, is a really hard, is a big trap to get stuck into. But just having that awareness, now you can kind of pull yourself out of it and change your language. And you can change it for other people too. You'd be surprised like how surprised somebody might be if you catch them saying something like that about themselves, giving them this perspective of being like, hey, this is what you said, but how do you feel when you say it, you know, when you flip it and you say it the other way? You said that you want to stop being fat, but how about thinking about, you know, what do you want to start doing? Do you want to start moving a little bit more? Do you want to start working on your nutrition? How does that make you feel now? So I like that one. That's a fun one. So just make sure that you check your language first. Next, don't look back. You're not going that way. So this is about statements about what you've had previously and wanting to go back there, which, you know, you're not there anymore. The past doesn't exist. And so all you can do is create the future. So even if you want something similar to what you've had in the past, make sure that the statement ignores what's happened before and just focuses on the now. It takes a lot of energy and it's super kind of productive when you are throwing out what you don't want and what you don't want to go back to. But you can have more energy about creating something new. So don't let the past weigh you down. So take away the statements that refer to the way that it was or wanting to be back there or not wanting to be back there. All right, so let me just explain this pain to pleasure down the bottom. This one's an interesting one because often goals take you out of a pain and put you in towards something that's more pleasurable. Basically, humans, you know, as behavioral creatures, we don't like being in pain and we seek pleasure. This is where we're looking at, you know, those underlying habits, you know, the reason why we have a problem and the reason why we have goals. There's habits in there that are there because that's the way that we're hardwired to seek pleasure. So to have a goal that actually takes you away from those pleasurable things is actually quite hard. And which is, again, why some goals don't work out for very long, is because we end up putting ourselves into pain to try and get out of that hole. So what you need to do is just figure out when you're setting those goals, going from something that's pleasurable, like emotional eating or having a bit of a hookup for chocolates and that sort of thing, but moving to something that is also pleasurable, because you still want to stay in pleasure, that pleasure state. So examples might be, hey, I want to replace this emotional eating with exercise. All right, how about you do 100 burpees? Hell no, that's painful. I don't like that. Okay, what about if you started joining a dance class? You like dance, don't you? Yeah, I really love dance. I used to be like the #1 tap dancer at my school. Cool. All right, so we've just found a pleasurable replacement as opposed to a pain replacement. We want to move from pain to pleasure. It's just the way we're hardwired. We are not going to go out being happy about being in pain, but everyone's pain looks different. Another example is everyone's different perception to exercise. I think exercise is pleasurable. I get kicks out of it. The exercise that I do is different to the exercise that somebody else enjoys. So even just looking at different styles, I can't see myself doing a Zumba class because it's embarrassing and I don't like it. I did it once and it was horrible. But like throw me, doing heavy weights, and I get so blissful. I really like it. So just find items, and this is going off on a tangent, but I really like this pain to pleasure thing. Tactics. So you've got your goal, you've got your why, then you've got your how am I going to do it? What are my strategies? What are my tactics? See if you can find as many pleasurable things to do to get that goal. And I guarantee it's going to be a lot easier for you than going through pain. There is some pain involved, but let's make it mostly pleasurable. All right, that was a lot. Let's move on. Identify and manage barriers. And I was joking to Bridget at the start of this session. I was like, you know what? We covered this last year, but the one thing that we forgot to mention, because it wasn't a thing, was pandemics leading to mass lockdown. So this is another important thing that you need to do when you're setting your goals is think about what may get in the way. It's like doing a risk assessment. How might your family impact your goals? For example, if you want to eat in a specific way, but you have to cook for the rest of your family, well, are they going to eat what you eat, or are you literally going to have to cook 2 meals? Is that realistic? Do you have enough time to do that? How is that going to work? Friends, are your friends supportive or are they destructive? For me, I tend to give in to peer pressure, and maybe I drink when I don't want to drink or when I had plans, taking you away from what your structured goals were. Say if you say, oh, I really needed to go for a swim today, but they want to go out to the pub. What I'll do, work and everything that we love about work, stress, working from home, competing priorities, taking work home. Does your boss know what you're working on, and do they support you with that? Say, for example, I know it's always been tough to try and get into class times that work out with your work schedule, and bosses either being flexible and giving you the opportunity to start work a little bit later, or being completely inflexible and stopping you and barring you from doing those classes that might actually help you towards your goals. Unexpected life events, illness and injury, it happens, but just knowing that there's a workaround. If you hurt yourself, you've still got other body parts that we can train. So you can either do a workaround, or you've got your rehab, which is going to get you back to where you want to be anyways, but just making sure that it is in the back of your mind, I suppose. I'll leave it at that. And events, just making sure that in your internal calendar when all the weddings are, when all the trips away are, that sort of thing, so you can work around it. So if you've set yourself up to say, do a certain thing 7 times a week, is that realistic if every so often you go away for a 3-day weekend and you can't do the thing that you said you're going to do because you're not in that same environment? So just having, that in your awareness as well. All right. And we're going to make sure that we are prepared and ready for any pandemic and lockdown that may occur, because Sydney people can't keep them germs to themselves. So just keep, again, I think it's quite relevant to keep that in your mind. For me, like swimming, what if all the pools shut? Well, I either got to swim in the ocean. What if they give us a 5-kilometer radius? I can't swim in the ocean anymore. What does that mean? I'm probably going to have to put that goal on hold, but still hopefully have December 31st as the end goal. I don't know. That's something I still need to consider, apparently. So these are all different handbrakes, things that can stop you from progressing forwards. Okay, number 4, set the bar just a little bit lower, which is probably not emphasized enough last year. So if you and a group of friends are being chased by a lion, you just need to be faster than the slowest person. You don't need to be the fastest person. You just need to be not the slowest person so you don't get eaten. The slow person will get eaten, you'll get off. What I'm trying to say here is, mediocrity is okay. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fantastic. You don't need to run at 1,000 miles an hour. You just need to get a little bit of momentum and keep that going. That's all you need to do. I set my goal for December 2021 I can always raise that bar. If I find that I can like already swim 100 meters after a month, well, maybe I'll raise the bar a little bit, but I really have no idea how this is going to go. So if it's been a while since you've been successful, if you haven't felt like you've achieved anything recently, just, dip your toes in the water. Don't set it, don't go crazy. Don't set anything, too hard or too heavy, because you will crash and burn. You just need to set the bar high enough that it'll keep you interested. If I set my swimming goal for like 3 years time, where I'll be like, oh, well, I've got a while. I can sit back and I can chill for now. Let's just go back. Let's be real. And we're back at university, we're back in year 12. You did not start that assignment the day that it was handed out. You started that assignment 2 days, maybe a day before it was due, and you handed it in at 11:59 p.m. when it was due at midnight. Admit it. You did it. We need to set reasonable time frames, but realistic time frames. Nothing too long, nothing too short, but we can always pull the due date in. It's not as fun when you have to push the due date out. Okay? Number 5, own your shit. I like this one. So you need to own the person you are today, the person who's showed up onto this Zoom meeting. You have created that person, and the only person responsible for the state that you're in, this is a bit of tough love, is you. You are responsible for your reality. Versus, showing up and just blaming everyone else. Blaming COVID, blaming your friends, blaming your shitty parents for who you are as a person, the state that your body's in, which is hard. If you've been hit by, sorry, this is terrible. If you've been hit by a bus and you're like in a wheelchair, I mean, sure, we can blame the bus, but you're still here and you still have to show up and you still have to figure out your next step forward. So if you ever find yourself a little bit low and a little bit angsty and blaming animate and inanimate objects for your misfortune or where you are today, just like take a few steps back and realize and put in perspective that everything you've done has led to where you are now. And ultimately, if you take responsibility for that, you're ready to move forwards. Those that tend to blame external circumstances for where they are will find it really hard to move on with their goals, because anytime something comes up, they're not going to look at themselves. They're going to look outwards at what the problem is. And it's never going to be your fault for not showing up to the gym. It's going to be the rain. It's not going to be your fault for eating the block of chocolate. It's going to be whoever put it in the fridge. So take some control back. Know that you are in full control of yourself and everything that you do. Even when it feels like you're on autopilot, you're still in the driver's seat. Okay? That was number 5. Own your shit. Number 6, it's okay to be mediocre. This is like one of my favorite quotes at the moment. It only half ties into what I'm trying to explain, but I'm going to read it anyways because I think it's hilarious. So how the quote, like, when you're surprised that somebody could do something, like say if like I turned around and you did backflip, I'd be like, oh, you can do a backflip. And then they'd be like, oh yeah, it's not my first rodeo. So the quote is, how am I supposed to know how to do everything by my second rodeo? That still seems like a very low amount of rodeos. Like suddenly 2 rodeos and you're like amazing. No, it takes a bit of practice, and it's okay just to like start small. So this is what I'm trying to get at. Starting small. This is probably like one of the most important ones. And it's funny because everyone who I've spoken to already about goals has kind of come to the realization now. They're like, oh, I always go too hard, too fast. I always go head first instead of foot first. I really need to slow down and take some more time. And I'm like, yes. All right, now you're ready for goals. So start small. Start with just a few daily or weekly things. The recommendation is about like 1 to 3 things. 1 to 3 small things that you can do to get started, and then add layers as you go. I had this example of, a couple of slides ago. So the example of going to the gym, if you've been inconsistent, maybe going 1, 2, 3 times, but not tracking it, inconsistent with those numbers completely, never know, no planning, never know when you're going to go, you just show up and suddenly you're there. So then let's say, hey, in January, just focus on going 2 times. I know you want to go 5, but let's just keep you accountable to 2. Great. Can you do that all of January? Now, it doesn't have to be 100% compliance, but you're looking at about 80 to 90%, to be real. If it was under 80%, that's probably not consistent. You may need to spend another month just getting good at 2 times a week. But if you were 80 to 90 to 100% compliant in January, then we may allow you to go up to 3 times in February and then up to 4 times in March. Let's just boil you slowly so that you don't crash and burn. So that is a pretty simple example. Another one, all right, this is not me, but somebody else, but they're going to kick me for this. Somebody who wants to stop drinking Coke Zero, but they probably have like 2 to 3 cans a day. It's bad. What if they suddenly really come to a realization, maybe they've seen to the doctor, their teeth are going pretty bad. If they just know that enough is enough and that they need to kick this Coke Zero habit. I mean, you could go cold turkey and it could work. I know that a lot of people are probably going to have, obviously not sugar withdrawals because it's chemicals, gross, but you like caffeine withdrawals, but also everything can be a drug. So any sort of habit withdrawals, because obviously the Coke Zero gave you pleasure and not having it puts you in pain. Maybe you need to wean yourself off of it. So instead of being like, hey, I'm going to go cold turkey, and then 2 weeks, and you do it for 2 weeks and you feel fantastic, and then suddenly you crack and then you think, oh, well, I didn't hit my goal. It's over. I'm not going to be able to do it. Well, that's too definite. Goals aren't on or off. It's you keep chipping away at them and you get better and better over time. So what you could do is acknowledge that you cracked after 2 weeks, and then maybe do a little bit of personal assessment. What could I do better? What led to this? What would I do differently next time? A little bit of self-regulation, and then jump straight back into, and I'm not going to have Coke Zero again, and I'm going to see how long I can do it this time. Or doing the same example, allowing yourself, if you're 2 a day over 7 days, that's 14 in a week. Maybe you try and go every other day. Maybe you try and go to 1 a day or 1.5. It depends on what your tolerance is. Check with yourself and ask yourself with any of those examples, what can I see myself doing? If you get any sort of resistance, or if you think that so a big question that we ask is, are you ready to change? Are you willing to change? Are you able to change? And if any of those 3 things, ready, willing, and able, are less than, say, like an 8 out of 10, then there's a bit of doubt there. So for example, with the two Cokes a day, if I ask this person, are you willing to go down to like 1 Coke every 2 days, which is like 4 instead of 14 in a week? Are you willing to do that? They'll probably be like, no. There probably may be like a 3 out of 10 confidence. We wouldn't pursue that goal, not at all, because they're not confident, which means I'm not confident. They're probably going to crash and burn. So we would reassess and be like, all right, well, how about 10 instead of 14 over the whole week? Like, yeah, I think I could do that. That'd probably be about like an 8 out of 10 confidence. And we'd be able to pursue that. So again, that was a bit of a mouthful there. Just really pick apart and assess what you've decided to do and figure out, is that realistic today and for this month? Say if you've got some really high goals, is that something you need to ease into? Do you need to give yourself 3 or 4 months to move into that? So maybe set the bar lower. It might feel a little bit mediocre, but there's a good chance, if you do all those checks, they're actually going to be more consistent and more successful over time. Cool. There's more. 7, be realistic with what you can take on. Let me move this down. This is kind of what I already said, so it's just kind of highlighting that again. Ooh. So another fun quote, if you chase 2 rabbits, they will both escape. But basically, if you try and do too much at once, you're probably not going to get very far. It's the classic story about multitasking. Multitasking doesn't get you very far. So just focus on a few very small, very specific things. There's a lot better chance that you're going to be able to get those than, you know, having pages and pages of all these new things that you're going to start and do them all at once. That's crazy talk. Unless you quit your job and hire like a live-in personal trainer and chef and God knows, like career advisor, I don't know. There's a good chance that you're going to crash and burn. So just take it slow, calm down, enjoy the process. All right. Some gentle reminders. Oh, there's more. All right. Nobody is like you. You design yourself. So a cool way to think about goal setting is that you are now a science experiment. You are an individual. There's no one else like you. So you need to come up with your own hypothesis or with the support of a trainer or someone like that. If this happens, if I do this, I think this will happen. If I eat smaller meals, I think I'm going to lose weight. Then you design the method. How am I going to go about this? Well, I'm going to use a smaller plate instead of a bigger plate. I'm going to put the rice that I'd normally put on the plate, and then I'm just going to scrape a little bit back. That sort of thing. That's how you're going to do it. Then you observe. Over a period of time, a week doesn't change much. So set your observation for, give yourself at least 2 weeks, but ideally a month of observing your hypothesis and executing your hypothesis with an 8 out of 10 consistency. And then once you've gone through that period of time, assess the results. Did anything happen? Yes or no? Did you find resistance? Were you consistent? Were you compliant? Did you find yourself not wanting to do it? Did you find anything else out? Did you have more energy? Did you motivate others? Did other people make comments about what you were doing? Figure out what the results are, then decide, will I keep doing it? Will I stop doing it? It didn't work for me. Or do I just need to tweak the hypothesis or tweak the method and try it again? So if you were a science nut at school and you remember doing those scientific reports, this is for you. This is a really great tool to get you out of the idea of somebody else did this and it worked for them, therefore it should work for me. You can go in with that thinking and you can try it, but just know that it may not work for you because you are not exactly that person. You have different bodies, different lifestyles, different everything. There are some obviously well-known health and fitness approaches that work for a vast majority of people, but it's never guaranteed. Nothing is ever guaranteed. Next, failure is fun. You will fail at something in some regard, or you'll feel like you're falling short. But that's not to say that that goal is over or that it wasn't for you. How you learn to move on is a lot more important than giving up on something completely. So we like failure. I talk about failure all the time. You know, when you do like 10 really heavy squats and you try and do number 11 and you get down and you can't get back up, that's muscular failure. You know, muscular failure is great because you actually figured out how far you can go. Not a lot of people actually find out their physical limits. So muscular failure, physical failure is a good thing. It shows that you actually know where your limit is. As far as goal failure, it's either an approach that didn't work for you or learning to just like dust yourself off, pick yourself up and keep going. It does not mean that that goal is over. All right, another one of my favorite ones, because it has to do with language and behavior. Be mindful of negative language and limiting beliefs, which is something that we tackle a lot as ourselves. And I still tell myself things that is limiting. So that every time you say that, oh, I can't do this. Well, I'm not good at that. Well, I've never done this before, therefore I shouldn't try. Hello, I can't swim. I can doggy paddle at best. But I've told myself my entire life that I can't swim, therefore I haven't tried. And here I am, I'm 31 and I can't swim. So there you go. Be very aware of yourself over the next couple of days, the conversations that you have with others and with yourself, and you'll be shocked at how often those things come up. I mean, obviously I work in the training space and I've coached kids with, highly technical skills, and that comes out a lot. I'm afraid that these kids are going to come up, be brought up knowing, feeling that they can't attempt anything if they're not immediately good at it. So we've really lost the willingness to try, even if we suck. Now there's two, I've just said the word try, and here we go. There's two words that are immediate red flags, which is the word try and the word maybe. And I've seen it time and time again all right, so I was a young PT and I didn't know any better. And I just took people's words for what they were. And I believed that they were actually going to do what they said they were going to do. But the problem is that they said, I'm going to try and eat better this week. Versus, well, this is still a terrible example. I'm going to eat better this week is a little bit more compelling. However, what is eating better? What is eating worse? What's your comparison? What does eating better look like? So first is that you're going to try to do it, gives you the opportunity to not do it and say that you tried. So you don't even have the personal conviction that you know that you're going to do it yourself. So we just chop out the word try and we make sure that we don't use it. We just say, yeah, I'm going to do it, because if you basically say that you're going to try and do it, you might as well say that, no, I'm not going to do it. All right, so take out the word try. Be very specific and compelling with what you are going to tell people you're going to do. So for that example about eating better, God, I don't know how many people told me they were going to try and eat better. And I was just like, yep, all right, sweet. Let me know how you go next week. Whereas now I'd be like, all right, what does eating better look like to you? Oh, well, I'm actually going to make sure that I have protein for breakfast and that I stick to 3 meals a day instead of the snacks that I usually do between breakfast and dinner. And I'm going to make sure that I only drink water instead of anything else. I'm like, oh yeah, fantastic. Are you going to do that? Are you going to try and do it? Yeah, I'm going to do it. Excellent. That gives me the confidence that they're going to do it. Otherwise, they've just lied directly to my face. Another word is maybe. And I got this one recently. And maybe in a sentence also gives that doubt, also gives you an out. So if anyone says that, oh, maybe I'll, the double trifecta, maybe I'll try and eat better. No, you've already said you're not going to do it. So be aware of times that you're using those words or when other people are using those words and what they're using them for. Again, you can really, if you care about your friends and they've got goals, you can pick them up on that sort of stuff and actually get them to figure out what would be more compelling. Or if they've got doubts, like what they need to go back and fix before they make those sort of statements again. Okay. I think this might be the last one. Remember your why. Always remember why you're doing what you're doing. If you can't quickly, easily, boldly, immediately state why you're doing what you're doing, why are you losing weight? I don't know, it seemed like a good idea at the time. You're going to quickly lose momentum. You're going to become quite dire and ambivalent about those goals and what you wanted to achieve. You're going to stop. It shows that there's either a disconnect between what you want and your values. So we need to go back to why are you alive? Why do you do what you do? Why do you live the life that you lead? Or It goes back to, did you just set the bar way too high? Did you bite off more than you can chew? Did you throw the frog in the fire and you just got overwhelmed and you gave up? That's probably the two things. So always remember why you're doing what you're doing, and the goals will keep rolling through. In any capacity, if I see you weekly, monthly, never. I always want to stay up to date with your goals and what you're doing. Just like feel free to hit me up. I love text messages. I love hearing about what you learn. So it's not even just about what you're achieving, but like that person that you're becoming as you're achieving those things, and what you're learning about yourself and what you're learning about the process. I think it's just so cool, especially as adults. We stop learning and we stop trying, but to have some really solid goals, it means that we can go back to, that childlike mindset of learning new things and, becoming a different person, basically.